And I'm going to start with this note we got from Jorge. He says, Andrew and Ben, I just watched the Google Lumiere sizzle reel. It looks like an incredible capability and one that I think has an impact or will have an impact in many industries.
Yeah, just to be
Especially,
clear, this is sort of a video from Google about basically creating video from text.
yes. So basically, you enter a prompt into a field in Google, and it will generate up to 5 seconds of video.
You know,
And
this is
Jorge,
this would be a good this is a good bit where video would be helpful. But anyhow, continue.
well, Google owns the rights to that one. But he says this will be especially impactful for big and expensive creative agencies we use in the corporate landscape. The key thing that popped into my head, he says, is that technology like this only makes live sports infinitely more valuable. This technology essentially makes almost any story or drama possible to produce and publish to streaming services at a very low cost one day. So the only truly dramatic, suspenseful entertainment product left will be sports. What do you guys think of that theory? So I think that's a good theory of the case from Jorge. It tracks with a lot of what we've talked about in the last year as far as experiences and events becoming a lot more valuable, particularly as more and more traditional media becomes commodified. And then AI will probably provide cheap alternatives to some of the replacement level content out there. Do you have any thoughts on that theory from Jorge or just Google Lumiere more generally? We'll put a link to the sizzle reel in the show notes for people, but where do you think that particular capability fits in the AI multiverse that's emerging here?
Well, the answer is to look at other mediums to start out with. I mean, I think there is an implicit assumption from Jorge here and sort of folks in general that all content is a commodity. And certainly that's the way that large tech companies approach and treat it, just for reasons of scale, if nothing else. We've talked about the implications of that. If your Facebook feed, you know, my go-to example, there's the deeply reported investigative report right above the picture of my nephew, right? Like, and they're treated the same. But they're obviously not the same. And that is that's a good thing. That will always be the case. I mean, I would not have a business. We would not be able to make our appeals to no, listen to the podcast. Don't spend too much time on YouTube.
Subscribe to the show too. Yeah.
If there were not some sort of human component there. And that's why, you know, I don't feel threatened by AI. Sure, you can go to AI. You could train an AI on Stratechery and ask it questions and you'll get answers. It's still not content from me. Now, does that mean that that's a protection for everyone and everything? No, of course not. The reality is, and this is what we've seen again in industry after industry, is that there were huge portions of every medium, whether it be text or video or photos or whatever it might be, that were, not to sound derogatory, but like fillers content, right? You know,
yeah,
that
like replacement level, like I said.
Replacement level, yes, to use a sports term, right? Like, how do you measure the value of a particular player? It's value over replacement or value above replacement, VAR, right? And the idea is, if you took this player off this team and put in like a league average player, or you could do league average, or you could do like worst possible, because it's like you're bringing up someone from the minors or the G League or something otherwise, what difference sort of does that make? And the truth is, in a world of commodified content, in a world where a lot of people don't particularly care what they consume, or they're just looking for something to have on in the background, that stuff will be replaced and will go away, because the most important driver is cost, is how much does it cost to create. And if you can create something automatically, that's going to be cheaper than having a human do it, even if, you know, the rendering costs are a lot, right? Or the inference costs are a lot. Relative to a human, it's still dramatically cheaper. And so we've seen that, you know, and this is, you know, one of the frustrations, complaints, whatever it might be, that people have with sort of like content on the internet, right? Is just sort of chasing this sort of lowest common denominator, where lowest common denominator is basically what's the least amount we can spend and still get clicks. Like what's our click to spend ratio, and you can drive click to spend ratio by upping the clicks and having clickbaiting headlines and you know, analysis, what drives traffic, and you can drive down your spend. How much does it cost to actually produce that? That's how you end up with, you know, the Sports Illustrated AI articles that we talked about several episodes ago. So will this apply in this case? Yes. And is that bad for creators writ large? Certainly, right? Like if you're a corporate HR department, or you're creating some sort of presentation, would you rather go and spend $500 on a Getty image or a video reel or whatever it might be, or just generate something that's good enough to get the job done? Mm-hmm. And there is sort of a, to what aspect, one of the hopes that people paint in terms of like AI replacing jobs is that, well, a huge number of jobs today no one could have thought of sort of 100 years ago. And that's certainly true. It does raise the question of how actually useful are many of those jobs. And to be clear, I say this as someone whose job could not have existed 20 years ago. So I mean, there's a pot calling the kettle black here. But I would set I'm very solipsistic. This is just this is our livelihood. So of course we're biased to think this. I would like to think that the internet has enabled a new class of creators that build a connection that is unique to them. And actually, you and I are more differentiated than almost anyone that's come before, precisely because it's a direct transmission of our words, our faces, our text directly to users. And that's,
right.
That is something that is actually quite compelling. And so there's this bifurcation. Anything in the old model of this mass produced content meant to be consumed at scale, all that is certainly in trouble. And there's going to be a completely sort of reforming of content. But I don't think that the fact that they can do it for video now is new per se. We've seen this story.
Yeah, no, and it'll be interesting because I want to be very careful when I predict that content from people like you and me will retain value and maybe even become more valuable as the rest of the internet becomes awash in AI generated nonsense. And
I mean, I think so, but I'm biased. But
exactly.
Yes.
Well, and who knows? I mean, we could be the frogs slowly boiling, and who can say what AI will do to the landscape 10 years from now?
I think we can say that. Like that's the whole bit, right? If I'm wrong, then the punishment, number one, like by and large, people pay me to at least try to be right most of the time. I was going to say the value
proposition is being able to say what things will look like
right.
10 years from now.
And number two, if I'm wrong, I will be punished by the market for being wrong. So rest assured, all my haters, there will be a downside.
Yeah, well, and this side of the AI revolution is interesting to me. Like in the video, they animate Starry Night from Van Gogh and the Mona Lisa from Da Vinci, so that's pretty cool. We also got some footage of sea turtles that looks incredibly realistic.
It was not the Mona Lisa from Da Vinci.
Okay, well, what was it? Maybe I missed it in the.
No, it was girl with pearl earring from Vermeer. I would not say that I'm an art cultural critic, but my goodness, Andrew.
God. The point is, it's unclear when any of this will be available for public use, and also we're talking about 5-second videos here, and so I think everybody
No. We've had this discussion. Okay, so 2 points. Number one, you can't judge this on what it can do today. It's the trajectory. And when DALL-E 2 came out, I wrote an article about how, look, this is what's going to make the metaverse work, is this generation of content.
Oh, totally. And no. Before you let
me jump into this. And okay. So, like, that is about the long-term trajectory. I said this will be able to do video, but of course it's going to take years. The one who am always harping on you that, like, look, no, you have to look at the trajectory where it's going, dramatically underestimated how quickly this is moving. So I would say the fact that it's 5 seconds today in 2024 is actually pretty shocking.